Hey, we're Saints Father Chris here. Welcome to our crucifixional live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people with us. My wife and I, people often ask, how do you have such a good marriage? I mean, really, like you don't seem to fight or bicker or anything. And I tell them the story. We married 27 years almost. And when we were newlyweds, it was on our honeymoon, we were horseback riding. And like a foot into it, the horse like bucked her off and she fell to the ground and whatever. And I was like, holy cow. She stood up. She was fine. Dusted herself off. No big deal. And she looked at the horse and she said, "That's one." I was like, what? Well, she got back on the horse. We continued. I'm not kidding. Not 5 minutes later, the horse bucked her off again. And she jumped up and dusted herself off and got back on and said, "That's two." Now, maybe I was impressed by like how she had the strength to do that. I was like, look at my cute, sweet little bride. I mean, she's like just dealing with all this and absorbing it all like amazing. I couldn't believe it. 5 seconds later, number three, bucked her off. She gets up, dusts herself off, pulls out a shotgun and shoots the horse in the head. I mean, like, boom, just killed her right there. And I got nervous, obviously, as I should. You could imagine, like, Father Chris, what's going on with this wife? I'm like, woman, you're crazy. What are you doing? You can't just do that. She looked at me and said, "That's one." You see what I did there? You see that? That's gold, man. I don't care who you are. That's funny. Good stuff. All right. How do we have a good marriage? Well, like everybody, we have conflict within our marriage. Everybody fights. Sometimes fights are fun because sometimes you can make up, right? Like it's a good thing, sometimes healthy to fight. You get it all out, you express yourself, your emotions. Sometimes in anger you say things that you normally wouldn't otherwise. But if you live a life of conflict, it ain't no good. Miserable, right? We talked about this on Wednesday. Miserable. Nobody wants that. So how do you deal with conflict? Because there are times where, look, you've got stress in for all of us, and in no particular order, in your own physical health, in your workplace, with parents, with friends, with children, financially, emotionally. Some people have physical illness. Always say that physical health at the beginning. Maybe you didn't sleep good. Maybe you got a cold and you're miserable. Maybe there's tension between the two of you with what one did to the other or didn't do for the other, right? Like there are always tense moments in life. It's just life. It's how it happens. There's so much pressure, squeezing all the time that sometimes we don't handle it well. And particularly with the person we love the most and with whom we spend the majority of our time, i.e. the spouse. So when those fights come, how do we deal with it, right? How do we overcome how do we resolve conflict, right? That's really the question we're talking about today. And I think the choice that the world has given to us very often is like that. Like we said all week long, it's the Burger King, L'Oreal, you do you rule, get what you want, look out for number one mentality, right? You got to take care of yourself, protect yourself, always show the other why they're wrong, right? And most of the time we see it don't work, right? That's why 50% of divorces in this country end in divorce, without even including the statistics of those people who get together, live together, and then break up and never get married, because they ain't in those statistics. So the number probably is higher, right? Like it's insane to me. People are not dealing with conflict resolution in a very healthy way, certainly not in a crucifixional way. Now, there is a specific individual person who is quite amazing and gave us different insight. That person's name is the Lord, our Savior, Jesus Christ, right? The Son of God. He says in a beautiful passage in Matthew chapter 5, which is right in the heart. Well, chapter 5 is the beginning of what we call the Sermon on the Mount. And at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, in the Beatitudes, he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God," right? Like he's telling you, I'm wanting you to make peace. Now, he is not, I think, specifically referring to husbands and wives fighting, though certainly he is as well, including them in that general category, right? Something in Christ's mind says to us that those who make peace, they are blessed. That is a desirable quality or trait, right? So it should say to you and I that we better think about making peace, particularly within the confines of our marriage, as well as outside in the rest of our relationships. He goes further in the same chapter 5. He's talking about someone who's coming to make an offering, their gift at the altar. And he says, so when you are coming to make your offering at the altar, and when you get there, you're about ready to make your offering, and you realize that your brother has something against you, stop right there. Leave your gift, go make peace, and then come back and make your offering, right? It's very clear. He's telling you, don't even approach the Lord if you're estranged with someone, right? For those of us who are in the Orthodox Christian tradition, this is why there is that moment before Holy Communion in the church where we say Christ is in our midst, he is and ever shall be. That moment is a remnant, it's a leftover from that peacemaking process. You are about to approach the Holy Cup. Put any burden down, any angst with another person, leave it there. and then approach. If you can't, come back the next Sunday. Make your peace during Monday, Tuesday, and come back next Sunday, and then you can have Holy Communion. But don't do it in that moment. Otherwise, you waken the monster, right? Like, don't do it. He's very clear. And I think there's a lot in that for us as we are in marriages. How do we deal with conflict resolution? Because the temptation, as the world has shown us, is to get mine and to protect myself and preserve my own ego and my own identity. Christ's way is completely contradictory to that. It is sacrificial. It is crucifixional, right? As he died on the cross and was crucified for our salvation, so too must we live crucifixionally in order to maintain a healthy marital relationship. So what I think that implies, a couple of just practicals I'm going to throw out there. We've got a lot more info on this at warriorsaints.org, both in our Understanding the Bible series and in our battle plan, like for life. We've got a lot up there, but let me just throw a couple at you. Number one, first and foremost, is you've got to, and I'm going to steal this idea from someone named Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins is an author, speaker. She just wrote a book recently. I read it. It was not bad. It's called Let Them. No, the Let Them theory. And her theory is you can't control other people. Let them do what they do. It's not your place. Let them do and say what they're going to say. It's not your duty, your responsibility, nor your privilege to control another person. That includes your spouse. Let them, you just have to let them do what they want to do. So if your spouse wants to come and gripe and complain because they've had a stressful day, let them. What you can do is control the way you respond to what they do and what they say and how they behave, right? So her theory is let them and let me, right? So let them do what they're going to do and let me do what I know I need to do, which hopefully is the crucifixional thing, right? To live your life right. So when a spouse comes to you and is throwing darts all over the place, and especially at you, let them. You can't stop it. You can, however, respond with love, with kindness, with selflessness, right? That's the crux of the gospel. Remember, think about Jesus Christ on the cross. Like, it's so funny to me that he was innocent. And he had the power as the Lord of all to crush them and to stop the cross, right? Like, think of the shame, the embarrassment, the frustration, all of the temptations that probably came his way. And yet he absorbed them all because he was looking for something higher, salvation. The slaying of sin and its outcome, death, right? And so he absorbed all of that, voluntarily, innocently went to the cross, and he crushed all the enemies. Likewise, we're called to follow that. If you, even though you may be innocent of the harangues that your spouse is throwing at you, even if you are innocent of it, maybe you can absorb that because your goal is not to be right. Your goal is to win. Maybe you want to win and heal the relationship rather than prove you are right and he's wrong or she's wrong, right? Do you understand? That leads to my practical point number 2 is, and we even have a chapter in our book, wherever the book is, the book, The Way of the Warrior Saint. We have a chapter. It's called Don't Be Right, Win, right? Let your goal, your target be to heal the relationship, right? It's not about being right. To be right it's an egotistical thing. I have to show why I'm right and he's wrong and she's wrong and I'm right. Okay, great. But then the misery is still going to be there and the conflict has not been resolved. Instead, try to win. Try to find a resolution. That may mean that you speak up and say, look, what you did was wrong or what you were saying is incorrect. It also may mean that you have to humble yourself a little bit, be crucifixional a little bit, and absorb some of that so that your ultimate goal is not proving why you're right and she's wrong, but why you or how you can acquire a win, a resolution, healing, health in that relationship. Right? And finally, the third part of that is, as in all things, as warrior saints, we have to remember we've got to be open and honest with ourselves and check our egos at the door. Most people think that they are always right. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We all are, right? We usually, it's in the DNA, right? We're supposed to be, and we're programmed, built to be self-preservative. So therefore, we're always right. It can't be me. It's the other guy. I'm saying, look inside yourself. Be honest. Be open. Recognize the fact that, you know what? You may not always be right. In fact, if you're a husband, very rarely are you right. All right, funny, but you get my point. We've got to be open and honest enough with ourselves. Self-reflecting, self-aware enough to realize, hey, you make mistakes. And when you do, own them. You got to own them. We have a whole series on that at warriorsaints.org in our battle plan, right? This is a plan for your life on how to live crucifixionally, and we've got a whole section dedicated to that very thing. So I encourage you, make sure you listen. You're always self-aware. Own and claim your mistakes. Don't try to be right. Win, right? And always in all things be crucifixional. If you do it, it's going to go great. I love it. and I love you. We will be back Sunday with Orthros and Liturgy at 9 and 10 a.m. Mountain Time, respectively. And then Monday with more live streaming. We're probably going to do some more marriaging stuff because it's great and we love it. Love you. Have a great weekend. Until then, as always, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.